Hey, my name is Yolanda, and welcome to Frank Factualities, the podcast. Tune in each week as I speak frankly about life experiences from my perspective and offer you a bit of unsolicited advice. Let's take a little time to laugh, to think, and to cry as we tackle some serious topics and some not so serious topics. Be sure you subscribe so you don't miss an episode. Welcome to Frank Factualities, the podcast. My name is Yolanda. Thank you for tuning into my show for another week and joining me for another episode. How is everyone doing this week? I hope all is well. I am doing just fine. I do want to thank everyone who sent their condolences and prayers and contacted me. I truly appreciate that. We are still going through the process. My father in law has not been buried as of yet. The funeral is actually going to be tomorrow. Today is Wednesday. You guys know I recorded the day before I released an episode. So tomorrow we will bury him and funeralize him. So again, thank you for each and every one of you who reached out. I truly appreciate it. And of course, I told my husband outside of that, what is going on with me? I've just been home supporting my husband, making sure that he's good, checking in on him, going back and forth because my husband isn't from the area that I live in, so we've been kind of doing a back and forth there. But overall, I'm hanging in there. So let's get straight into street talk.
Yeah, look, yeah, what's going on? Let me know.
So last week we were talking about the Keita Rose situation. On, I talk about another person who sent her a DM and that she thought was shady, which really didn't have much to do with tonight's conversation. She was just saying, like, boy, people really want to kick you when you're down. Then I saw she posted an audio last night of her and Ace conversation. I wish you would have given us a timeline as to when she started her going on these rants on social media. But after, of course, she stopped appearing on the shows, and I guess she wanted to have a conversation with him about her money. I was unclear about the timeline because they were talking about trying to come up with a solution to the issue and resolving it so that she could get her money. I think that never happened, which is why she started doing these videos and contacting, and outing people. So that's my thing. I also learned on the audio that Randy, the one who she was on the live with, was actually the one who Kitty said exposed her address. But her and Randy are friends now, so I'm assuming Kitty lied because they're talking now, and I think Randy cleared up that whole situation. But it's very messy. And I think one thing that I thought was interesting was that Keita said, that Ace only wanted to do business with the men in their lives. So if you had a husband, he only wanted to talk to the husband. If you had a boyfriend, he only wanted to talk to a boyfriend and do deals with them. He said that they understand better. And I think that's another story, but I think that's what's wrong with society now. Like she said, as if my boyfriend may know more about the business. My husband and I are both in education, but he's not in this world. He doesn't follow hot topics or street talk and all these other different things. And so if I were to talk to him right now about who these people are, he would have no idea. Yes, is he smart and can he read? Of course. So I'm sure whatever contracts would be put in front of me, I would have a conversation with my husband about it anyway. But to say that you don't want to talk to me and that it has to be him that does the negotiation with you, then I don't think I would have wanted to do business with that person in the first place, because I'm good enough for us to sit and have a conversation with about these topics. I'm good enough to help you promote your dream and your vision for what you have for this platform, but I'm not good enough to negotiate my price. I think that, to me, that spoke more about his character than anything she said. Because I hear her, she's talking about abuse, but I don't know if I got in enough detail about what abuse. She mentioned that some of his exes have reached out and said that there were physical abuse and that she could confirm that. I think her abuse was manipulation, really. manipulation and him kind of taking advantage of them in the situation over time. Yes, that can be abuse. I have been a victim of abuse at the workplace before, so I know exactly what she's talking about and what that is. So I'm not saying that it didn't happen. I'm just saying I don't know if I got enough examples of that. And I get it. She's going through a legal matter, and there's just probably some things that she can't speak about, but I'm still following y'all. I don't know if we're going to get to a conclusion. I saw that she shared that she's on a podcast getting ready to talk about it. And I think I know which podcast she's on. Y'all remember that podcast where the lady was talking and her wig fell behind the couch? I think she's on that guy's podcast. Now, I don't know his name. I don't remember. I don't even know if I follow him on social media, but everybody remembers that clip of the woman's wig falling off. So I think it's that platform that she's on. She also shared a clip a while back of Joe Budden saying that he would love for her to come on his platform to share her story about outing her coworkers. I don't know if she's going to go on that podcast, but I think that would be an interesting conversation because he has a platform where there are multiple people on the podcast. And so I'm sure they will have a lot to say and a lot to take in. Melissa Ford is on that podcast, who happens to be the only female. So she may be able to bring an interesting perspective on dealing with men in that type of environment. So I would love to see that. In other news, I know you guys have been seeing what has transpired with the Trump administration and everything that he's attempted to try to shut down that we probably have been working on for decades now. There's some things he can't do, obviously. Executive orders aren't laws per se, in that some things are constitutional law, and just some things that he can't necessarily do, and trying to decipher between what he can and cannot do has been very difficult for someone like me. You know, I don't know how much you all follow politics, but I follow it, but not so much so that I know whether or not everything is everything that's an executive order can be processed through, and whether or not, obviously we know what some constitutional laws are, but at the end of the day, this whole, I think, federal grants and funds was probably the biggest thing for me. And then we were told that a judge kind of shut that down and put a freeze on all of it. My biggest thing is that the fact that this is what he wanted to do, whether or not he could do it or not, the idea that this was a plan of his. I understand his business mindset that, okay, because we say it all the time that companies are top heavy and they need to let go some of their top people. He's seeing it as a federal government, it's too much. You guys have too many organizations and too many entities, and these people are getting paid for not doing anything. Why do we need these things? And to me, that just goes to show his ignorance and how he doesn't quite understand the totality of what the government does. And nobody's here to educate him. They're just along for the ride. Everybody is on the Trump train for clout. They want their name out there. They're trying to get notoriety. They want this power. And so nobody's really educating him. And although I do think that he understands business, he's been in it for a while, but running a country isn't the same thing as running a business where you're just thinking about your bottom dollar. You're dealing with people's lives. And I know that it's a tough time right now and a very tense time. And people are going back and forth on social media about, oh, so this is your king, i.e. this is the person that you all vote for, which is true. My husband and I were having a very interesting conversation on our way back from the viewing of the body today. And we were talking, and I said, I don't know if Trump supporters see what he's doing now as something that directly affects him. Not yet. They have a lot to say about, oh, these things take time, and he hasn't had time to do the things that he wanted to do. And I kind of beg to differ, because he's been doing a lot of things in the last couple of days. And he will continue to do some things. He mentioned that lowering prices of eggs and other things, or just the economy in general, is just not something on his forefront right now. And all I can think about is why people said they wanted to vote for him. It was two things stand out to me the most, and that was the economy and, of course, illegal immigrants. Now, I don't want to say that I don't care about illegal immigrants. What I can say is that people should be voting for presidents that are going to stand by things that are important to them, that will make their lives and the people that they care about lives easier. Now, do I think you should care about the rights of others? Of course, but your rights and the things that are close to your chest are number one. I don't live in a bordering state. I don't know what that's like to live in a bordering state where you just have all of these illegal immigrants coming in that causes problems and criminality, criminals, and just all of that stuff. I don't know what that's like. I live in South Carolina. It's really not, I mean, not to say that we don't have illegal immigrants. I'm pretty sure we do, but I can't tell you that those people are wreaking havoc in my city, because that's just not the case. They are minding their business and they're doing what they're supposed to do. However, it's very important to know how things work. You got to understand why people are choosing to come to the areas that they're coming to. I would just speak for South Carolina because that's all I know. That's where I live. And I'm going to speak to education because that's what I know. In our state, the state of South Carolina, if you did not know, education is governed by the state. So each state has its own rules and regulations as it relates to education. So in our state, we are required to take in a student undocumented. We cannot say that an undocumented student cannot come to school. And I'm only speaking for high school because that's where I work. I don't really understand it. I mean, I know that that's the case for elementary and middle, but what I'm about to say only relates to high school. If that undocumented immigrant comes in and say, for example, they're 15 years old and they've never been in school, we're taking them undocumented without any school records and not knowing academically where they're supposed to stand. So now our law says that you're given 4 years to graduate high school. So your 9GR is what we call it. The year you enter the 9th grade is when we start counting those 4 years. Typically, you give a person that 9GR again based on when they enter 9th grade. If the person is coming in, even if they tell you they're supposed to be a junior and they've gone to school up until their 11th grade year, as an illegal immigrant who have no records, I can't take their word for it. Now our state law says that we have to give them those 4 years. So even if they're 15 or 16, I have to enter them in the system as if they are a 9th grade student, which gives them that 4 years to earn their high school diploma. And so that is what our state is doing. We have programs for them through multi-language learners. So they get their own kind of like an accommodations. So it says so much so, I'm generalizing because I don't want to get into the technical terms of it all, but you kind of can't fail them. You know what I'm saying? Like that's how that goes. It's so much red tape that by the time you meet all the accommodations that they have for being a multi-language learner, being that English is not their first language, they get all sorts of accommodations. So there's more to it. You got to think, if I'm an illegal immigrant and I've heard that South Carolina is going to let my kids come in and I don't need paperwork for them, why wouldn't I bring them in illegally? So it's more than just, oh, Donald Trump got to close our borders. Like it's a lot of rules that need to be changed. There are a lot of things that we can do outside of picking people up at the border. If you make it so much so that they can't thrive and they get here and that they have to go through it the legal way, then you wouldn't have so much of it. But if I can bring my kids and my kids can just get into school, then why not? I've seen people from other countries bring their kids here after they've graduated. And Jamaica is known for that, by the way. They'll bring their kids over and we have to hunt for their documents or their school records, that is. And we'll see that the kid finished what they would consider a high school, because sometimes their high school doesn't go to 12th grade. Like we know, they finish and say, we'll call it like 10th grade here. And then from that 11th and 12th grade year, they're in their version of a college, like a 2-year college. But technically they finish high school. They'll bring them to us those 2 years so that they can earn a high school diploma in the United States, which I don't know what that does for them, but so many people do it that I gotta believe there's some sort of red tape and not issues, but like bonus behind doing that, because a lot of people do it. So I say all that to say, there's a lot of things we can do besides just rallying people up and deporting them and ICE busting into people's homes. You can make it so that your laws are set up so in the states that the people can't come and get an apartment or thrive unless they have the proper documentation, because otherwise they're going to get sick of laying on somebody's couch and not being able to work. And so you have people that are not willing to pay people under the table. You're going to always have this. If they can get work and they can work, they will work. And if you're not providing or asking for proper documentation, because you can't have your cake and eat it too. All these people fussing about not wanting illegal immigrants in here. A lot of times when you're getting this work done, especially housing type work, building stuff that don't really require you to have paperwork, where you can do a job like agriculture and, like I said, construction and all those things. They're using those illegal immigrants so much so that they don't have to pay them a fair wage. And yet you're going to say that. So at the end of the day, when all of these things start to depreciate and deplenish, like you can't find workers to do construction. You can't find anybody to pick your little fresh strawberries and all this other stuff. At the end of the day, everybody has its purpose and serves its purpose and what they can and cannot do. We not doing them jobs. And he talking about they're taking our jobs. We're not doing them, but we're gonna have to. Somebody's gonna have to do them, because who else is gonna do it? And then you have this dying industry of whatever it is that is. So everything has a consequence to it. So we keep right on. Again, that wasn't an issue that I voted on because it's not an issue that I see on a regular basis, and I can't do it. But I can't articulate why that would be important to me. But I see, based on a lot of red hat supporters, they just feel as everybody's saying the same thing. And I'm like, we're not all living the same life. So why would that be such an issue for you? Because I don't see that that's the issue for me. Even the people that I know live where I live are spewing some of the same rhetoric that I hear and see on TV. But I'm just like, I'm living the same life you living, in the sense that we under the same state guidelines, and these things aren't issues for me. I made a post on social media about, like, it was a joke. I was just saying, I see the egg prices aren't going to go down anytime soon, because there was a CNN article that said that they will be up for at least for the next year. Their prices are actually going to increase. So I was just like, but I thought you all voted. Pretty much I was implying that I thought you all voted for the economy, and here it is that prices are actually going to go up and not go down. And people were in a tizzy, and one lady was just like, Lord, give him a chance. He's only been in office a few months. And my thing to her was, oh, he's done a lot in a day. And not to mention, Harris wouldn't have gotten grace either. So I feel like it's all fair game. Everybody's upset that we are ridiculing Trump and we have something to say about it. But had the tables been turned and the other candidate won, they would have been doing the exact same thing. Hell, they've been grinding Biden before Trump was even in office. And the first day he was signing papers, he was still talking about Biden. So at the end of the day, it's fair game. What's good for the geese is good for the gander, or however the old people used to say it. And they just got to sit back and chill, because yes, we are going to criticize him because they act as though this is his first time. I mentioned, or someone mentioned on that same post, they were just like, oh, what did y'all get from Biden? Just some LGBTQA. I'm probably going to say all of those acronyms wrong, but you just got those rights and that was it. I would love for someone to elaborate on what they got in the last 4 years. And so I was like, oh, no, I didn't get any LGBTQA rights, but I did get $150,000 worth of student loans forgiven. And so at the end of the day, Uncle Joe can't do no wrong in my book. I would have voted for him again. Hell, if he was up with the Obama for president, I would have voted for Biden. That was like a lottery win for me. At the end of the day, that personally affected me. So you guys are voting on something that really don't affect you. You know what I'm saying? Like I said, illegal immigrants, yes, you may understand and feel a certain type of way. Like, these people don't need to be in the country illegally, and they should follow the proper protocol. I'm a rules girl, so I feel the same way in that instance, but I'm also human, and that's going to always kick in first. I'm not going to sit here and say that I'm okay with ICE running up in an elementary school and snatching students. I'm not going to sit up here and say that I'm okay with ICE coming and breaking up families and sending a wife back when their husband was there. You know what I'm saying? We come from a generation of slaves. At the end of the day, that ain't going to never be okay with me breaking up families and taking children and putting them in these camps and all these other things. It's just not okay with me. I am human first, and I am going to always lead with kindness and always go with that route. So at the end of the day, I just don't agree with that. Not that I don't have some Republican ways. I don't think that, to me, this is an issue of Republicans versus Democrats. I think this is an issue of Trump. Trump is just not presidential. You understand? He's not smarter than a fifth grader. It's just, and not to say that he doesn't have any valid points, or that there aren't some things that he wants to do that I can say, all right, well, that may need to be looked at. But at the end of the day, he just doesn't come across as a good person. And that's my issue with him as an individual. Has nothing to do with the party. It is him as an individual, and the fact that people are okay with some of the things that he wants to do. And it saddens me, and I think most of the world, to see how many people are on that same bandwagon. It's really sad, especially for somebody that works with children every day, and all you look at them and see, because I know I have illegal immigrants at my school. We have these discussions all the time. We have this conversation with them. and they're scared and they're nervous. So say this, hear people that I know that work at the same place I work talk about Trump this, Trump that, and yet you have to look these kids in their eyes and say that you support them, you love them, you're here for them, and yet you're voting for them to be snatched away from their families. I'm just not about that. That's just not something that I support. So it is what it is. But by all means, vote for who you want to. That's why we're here. That's why America is the free country. That's why they're trying, people want to be here. It's for the right to have the right to say and do and be. However, there's no judgment there. I don't feel no type of way about what somebody, because I'm going to vote for what I voted for. Like I said, Biden was going to have my vote regardless because of what he directly did for me. I wasn't voting for anybody else's rights other than mine as a Black woman, a Black female educator. Okay. That's what I was voting for, the rights of myself and my family. So it is what it is. Moving on into our topic. So we just talked about my family and attending a funeral. So I want to talk about family matters at this point, because you guys know this. Anytime you attend a funeral or you get around family, the idea that we got to do this more often always comes up. Everybody brings that up. We got to get together, and not just for this occasion. And it's almost cliche at this point because we say it and then the funeral is over, and then years or months or years go by and no one still does it. But does it as far as like get together and put something together. But I think what we also don't talk about is, last week we were mentioning generational curses, but we don't mention generational traditions that us young people haven't been able to keep up with. And when I say young, I ain't really that young. I'm a woman of a particular age. I'm 44 years old, and I've been somebody auntie, and we're not keeping up with those same traditions. It really does take a community. But if our aunts and uncles were able to get us together as cousins and have these cookouts and sleepovers, why aren't we doing the same thing? Why? I know that it's just me and my brother and I, and he has kids, and I have obviously kids, but my son and his kids are around the same age. So when they were younger, I got them a lot, and they spent a lot of time together. But now that they're getting older and they're in high school and middle school, I don't get them as much. They've gotten bigger. The space in the house gets smaller as the kids get bigger. But at the end of the day, I remember going to my cousin's house up until I was in high school, and we still spent the night with each other. And even outside of that, we had a cookout or family gathering for every holiday, regardless of how big our house was, whether or not we had more than one bathroom. Like, nobody cared about that. But nowadays, it seems like we're so focused on our own individual lives, like our own just immediate family, and we're not trying to open up our doors for the extended family. But then when something happens, like death, or someone gets gravely ill, the only people you can depend on are these family members that you've pretty much kind of sold, and you don't really talk to them anymore. And I just don't know where that change happened. What was it? I know that we all have these family traumas and issues based on how we were raised, and so we think that we want to do something different than what our families did. But I don't think that no one had the idea in their mind that as a family, we're not going to get together anymore. And when our grandmothers pass away, I think that's also when a lot of things change. You don't have that matriarch of the family that kind of brings everybody together. I'm not mentioning patriarch because I have not had a grandfather. I have never met anybody that I call grandfather. I don't have one of those. So I don't know what that is. And I've learned just recently that the people who I thought were my grandfathers weren't. Ancestry.com has taught me that in my family, that my dad, the person he thought was his father, is not his father. And my mom learned that who she thought was her dad wasn't her dad. So either these people are passing away and they're holding on to these secrets. People die, and then all these secrets come out. People are fighting when someone passes away over who about you when you pass away, or when your loved ones passed away, what they truly thought of them, I should say. And it's the time in the land of the living and the dead. And I think that we should get together more often just so that these issues can be resolved. And if you feel like, well, that's my family, but I don't have to fool with them because I'm going to protect my peace and set boundaries, that's fine. But I do think you need to, before it's all said and done and somebody goes in the ground, you need to resolve these issues, or find out exactly what those issues are. Because it's only going to get worse in the end. And I'm watching my husband go through some of those issues right now, so much so that I told him I need to speak to my brother, and we need to have a conversation with my mom and my stepdad about, not that we haven't already, but just kind of in general. So like, we know their general wishes, but at the end of the day, you never know who's going to step in and have, I mean, we talking about kids making decisions about their father, but then their aunts and uncles, which will be the brothers and sisters of their dad, having input, so much so that it gets nasty. Like, kids out of wedlock can't come to the repast that we gonna have just for out of town siblings and so forth and so on. I mean, when I say nasty, nasty, but who knew that these siblings were so holy than thou that they did not condone that type of stuff, so much so that they don't want nothing to do with the kids. You see what I'm saying? Because that would have been something that came out a long time ago. I remember my mom telling me that one of my father's sisters said to her that they didn't believe that I was his. Now, when I saw my dad and I see my mom, I grew up with my brother's dad. So that was my daddy per se, and that he was in the house with me and raised me. But I always knew who my father was, that I looked like him. I could, in my mind, I'm like, yeah, that's my daddy. I could see it. But obviously there was no proof until probably about a year and a half ago, I went on Ancestry. My dad is already on it, which is how he learned about his father. My sister is on it, my half sister. We share the same father. And obviously it comes up that we're a match, and my dad comes up that I'm his dad. So then he says jokingly, like, well, I guess they can't say you're not mine anyway. And I understand where the doubt came from. My dad is from another state, has always lived in the state. His kids that he has outside of me all live there as well. I am the only child that lives in another state. And him and my mom had this little fling like over the summer or something. So I'm just foreign child that just kind of came out of nowhere. So I understand why they would think that. But if my dad says that I'm his and he believed that, I get it. Mama's baby, Papa's maybe. But in my mind, I look like my daddy, but I understand looks can be deceiving. And as a kid, I don't know if I quite understood that until I had a son. And then I'm just like, yeah, I kind of would want my son to confirm that. Not in a nasty, negative way, but just in a, you need to know, because people do die with these lies. Like I said, my grandmother never told my mom that that wasn't the person she thought was her dad, wasn't her dad. And then when my mom asked her about it, when she heard the rumors, my grandmother was just like, oh, really? Like, that's all she said. Oh, like, because my mom was like, people are saying this. And she was like, oh, really? So, ladies and gentlemen, don't die with these lies, because frankly, the fact of the matter is people deserve to know who their family members are. People deserve to know what their lineage entails, like who their people are, because that's all you got in the end. That's all you have. You're going to get your condolences from Facebook friends and people from your job, and they're going to give you cards and all those things. But there's going to be a day when the pomp and circumstance of a funeral is done. That means the next day after the funeral, typically, those people aren't going to be the ones that check on you. It's going to be your family, because they lost someone too. So you all will share that. The people are just going to go on with their lives, because yes, death happens and it's devastating to the people that it happens to, but life still has to go on, and life is still going to go on with those people. And then you still have that empty hole, but you've already just kind of stopped dealing with people because you didn't want to deal with them and you felt as though you didn't need them. But they're your family, whether or not you talk to them on a daily basis, support them in their endeavors. If they're graduating from high school, if they're graduating from college, if they're having a birthday party, if they want to plan a trip, just spend a little time. It doesn't have to be, and I'm speaking to myself. I'm saying all of this, y'all, but I'm actually talking to myself. Also, get your affairs in order, please, and thank you. I don't care how young you are. You may be thinking at the time, like, oh, that's few and far between, but we all have to go at some point, and we all don't know when we're going to go. We don't know when we're going to go. So at the end of the day, write something down, have a conversation with somebody, videotape yourself, and tell them what your wishes are and who you want to be in charge. If you're married, that's an automatic. You know who's going to be in charge. That's your husband. If you're not married, I don't know why I'm spitting up so in this thing. Jesus Christ. I'm sorry, y'all. But if you're not married, then if you have children, yeah, you're going to, I don't know what the word is. I'm going to mess that up. It's like, someone in charge, like the person who takes care of all of your legal affairs. You're going to have to appoint somebody, and you need to do that while you're alive. And I say that because people are going to feel like they deserve to be that person over whoever you chose, because I'm seeing that happen right now. It's just like, well, why this person? And I don't trust them and blah, 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 blah. It has nothing to do with you. That's not your business. If the person that passed away feels safer with their business being handled by this person, you got to respect those people's wishes. But you, as the person that may be the deceased that one day, need to go ahead and put them things in, get your affairs in order. You got to get your affairs in order. You need to have them conversation with your children. You need to express to your children that at your passing is not the time to fight with one another. It is just not. You get what I'm saying? If you're a guy and you have children outside of a marriage, you have multiple kids by multiple women, you need to get that in. You need to get that in order. You need to get that in order. You need to have a conversation with your kids. You need to have your kids around each other on a regular basis. They need to be very comfortable with each other prior to. Nobody else should have to tell your child, hey, you know, that's your sister. Hey, you know, that's your brother. You get what I'm saying? No, it shouldn't be like that. I remember, this is my first cousin. My first cousin has a son, and my son is the same age as him. So he's been coming to my house for a long time. They've been playing together. But my mom saw him with my cousin, which would have been her niece, at the store, and he didn't know who she was. My first cousin's child didn't know who my mom was, which was her aunt, her mom's sister. He didn't know who she was. So she had to say, I'm Londa's mom, i.e. me, and Gavin's grandma. Now he knows us, but the fact that, to me, that's close family. That's your great aunt. You know what I'm saying? You don't know who she is. And that's because nobody comes around anymore. Everybody's in their own little bubble. Everybody's stuck in, again, until a funeral. And now you have to walk around and introduce yourself as if you from out of town, yet you live around the block. My mama literally lives around the corner from him. I could walk from my mama's house to my little cousin's house. They live right down the road. And yet he don't even know who you are, because we don't get together anymore. And I get it. We all got ailments. We all got issues. We got, like, I'm married. So sometimes when we're having Thanksgiving, especially Thanksgiving, because that's my mother-in-law's favorite holiday, and my husband is the only child. So every time Thanksgiving comes, then we go to visit down with his family. So that's usually when my family wants to do things, and we're not really doing Christmas like that. So I don't really get a chance to go. Not that I wouldn't, but we may have to switch it up one of these Thanksgivings, because we just went to their down there this Thanksgiving, which I'm glad, because that's the last time we saw my father-in-law. But we're gonna have to switch it up and spend some time and take the kids so that they can know the other kids, their second and third cousins. I'm telling you, excuse me, when I was on Ancestry, I saw people that I went to high school with that were my third and fourth cousins. Now, you thinking like third and fourth, that's not that close. That's the issue. The issue is I don't even know how these people would even be related to me. Because, you know, my husband's family is just like, that's my grandmother's first cousin. So that's my third cousin on my uncle daddy's side. Like, they know all of that. I couldn't tell you none of that. But I've seen these people and I'm like, how are they related to me now? The good thing about Ancestry, it tells you, it'll say that these people are related to you on your father's side. Now I can see that because my father is online, but it'll also, now that tells me that if I don't see them linked to my father, because it'll say, who do you share DNA with? And so my dad will come up if I share DNA with this person and my dad shares the same DNA. Now I know this is from my father's side. But when my dad doesn't come up and it's just me and my daughter, because she's on there too, I'm like, oh, that must be from my mom's side. Remember now, my mom's side, she don't know who her daddy is, or she knows, but the man's passed away and we don't really know that family. And then my mama's mom, my grandmother, our family was still just the immediate, like my grandmother's kids. That's all I knew. I didn't know any other cousins outside of that, except for one. So I'm like, well, we had to have had some extended family outside of my grandma, but I don't know these people. And so I couldn't tell you if these cousins of mine coming from my grandmother's side or coming from my mama's father's side. I don't know. And it does make me feel a little uncomfortable, because I'm just like, well, who are your people? And then you wonder why you get with you could eat, how people say you can get with somebody who's your cousin and you don't even know. So all I'm saying is that we have got to, as a people, do better by our family, because family truly does matter. It does. And we move around in the world like it doesn't. And that our coworkers even sometimes mean more to us than our family, our Facebook friends, and our loyalty to that platform or Instagram or whatever means more than the people that we've grown up with that share our same DNA. I ain't saying you got to be like besties with your family and speak to them on a regular basis. But at the end of the day, they're all you got. So that's my time, y'all. I hope I didn't ramble. I'm still in my feelings, so y'all bear with me. Until next week, though, I'll holla. Bye.